The following program is intended for mature audiences.
Rudy's Revelation.
Google me, bitch!
This is all a conspiracy. Don't you know that? It's a conspiracy there.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. It is July 19th. Thanks for joining me today. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about the RNC, the Republican National Convention. It closed out last night with Trump giving a speech. It was almost 90 minutes. Couldn't quite believe it. And we're going to talk a little bit about the MSNBC Meltdown with their crazy conspiracy theories, and Joy Reid, instead of being have any contrition about her causing an assassination attempt, they just said, well, it didn't really exist. Trump made it up, and Trump really didn't get shot. So let's get into the headlines right now for this Friday, July 19th. Happy Friday, everybody. Let's get into the news. All right, first up here from the Daily Mail, we have this major outage caused by a bug from Microsoft and Crowdstrike. Apparently, it's supposed to be software that's a security software, but actually the security software had a bug in it that shut down a lot of travel data terminals as well as healthcare, particularly in the UK. So the Daily Mail reports government holds emergency Cobra meeting after Microsoft outage sparks global chaos with planes and trains grounded, GPs in mayhem, shops closed, football tickets canceled, and TV channels offline. So if you were the enemy, now who is the enemy of freedom? Well, Microsoft owner and founder Bill Gates is the enemy, and possibly he's siding with our adversaries like China and Russia. But let's say you're China and your hackers put a backdoor or a bug in one of the system updates, and then, as most tech does now, it automatically updates when they go live with a system update. And so the system update is automatically uploaded in the background. Most users have no idea it's going on. And then all of a sudden everything fails. So what this is a beta test for shutting down the world. Now, you might not think so. Oh, it's just it's another tech situation. Maybe, maybe not. Hard to say. But what I'm saying here is that somebody put this virus, what it is a bug, it's a virus, into what happened? I had to shut down here. All right, hold on a second. Sorry about that, everybody. It didn't really work out the way I wanted it to. More technical problems. Going back to this story. Damn. More technical problems here going on to this story. Nothing seems to be working, so just hold on a second here.
You can't handle the truth.
All right. Sorry about that, everybody. Moving on to the next story here. This is from BBC. Crowdstrike and Microsoft, what we know about the global IT outage. Well, what we know is that there was a bug. Microsoft uses Crowdstrike for their security software. And what they found out was in the security software, there was an update, and that update had a virus in it that shut down everything. There is no known resolve time right now, so everything's kind of up in the air. And as I was saying previously, before I had a bug there, and my camera shut down, everything shut down, that we have a bug in the system. And so, as I was trying to explain before, that this could be a beta test for shutting down everything. Now, this is just one, this is over a couple sort of industries, but the nations that are really plugged in, like the UK, everything shut down. So shops couldn't use their registers, the hospitals couldn't access patient data, the travel industry globally could not access their computers for ticketing and so forth and so on. So everything is in mayhem right now. So stay tuned. I'm just going to read a couple, again, from the BBC. They're saying major IT outages have hit industries across the world. Almost 1,400 flights are canceled, and banking, healthcare, and shops are affected. Cybersecurity firm Crowdstrike says a defect in one of its software updates hit Windows operating systems. A fix has been deployed, the company says, but admits it could be some time before systems are fully back up and running. The majority of GP surgeries in England are experiencing issues. The NHS says, and then trains, shops, and pharmacies are also having problems. The New York Post is reporting flights grounded and travelers stranded, including at JFK and LaGuardia, after tech outage cripples banks and other companies around the globe. So there you go. This could, who knows where this virus came from, whether it was put in by Microsoft, maybe the communist Chinese. But in any case, this is a data test for a hacking scenario. So basically what happens with this is, let me give you the nefarious theory here, that a hacker gets into Crowdstrike somehow. They're supposed to be the security experts. And in the update for the security software within Microsoft, they put in a virus or bug. So once this update goes through, everything shuts down. That is the most likely scenario. It is not a defect in coding or something like that, because this is a crippling sort of what you would see from a virus or other malicious bug. All right, let's move on to the RNC here. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Trump accepts GOP presidential nomination. Biden remains under pressure. Donald Trump recalled the attempt on his life before covering familiar territory. Internal Democratic data showed President Biden losing in 2024 in a landslide. So we know this. This is why this is all happening. So if you had any doubt, what goes on here is basically a populist president that wants to return the government, basically the power of the U.S. government, to the republic, to the people. That's what a republic is. A republic is a nation state that is governed by its people, and that's the way it's supposed to run. A democracy is a procedure. It is the use of the ballot to achieve an end. So what we have in the United States is a democratic republic, which means the representation of the people is brought about through the ballot. But it's not that way. And as many people, including Tucker Carlson last night, in his short speech during the RNC, was that the people are not in control of the government. Rich individuals and corporations are. And I don't want to give a history lesson right now, but the reality for the 18th century revolutions, and even prior in the 17th century for England, was that the merchant class, corporations today, wanted to get rid of the monarchies. So republicanism was seen as anti-monarchy. So they achieved their end by using the people, returning the government to the people, which included the merchant class. But now the merchant class is fully taken over in terms of political power. So now all the liberties that the people wanted and got with their Republican revolutions over the monarchies, they want to take that away now and have an oligarchical, corporate-based global government. So the merchant class basically taking over the world. So that's the problem with Donald Trump, is, as Tucker Carlson said last night, is Donald Trump wants to give the power back to the people. Now, who wouldn't want that? So that's why the demonization campaign is coming along, and they're pulling out every stop to keep Donald Trump from office. So are we going to see another pandemic? Are we going to see bank failures? Are we going to see some sort of hack attack, some sort of internet destruction? You know, everything is based on technology now. So power outages and other cyber attacks are very likely going into the election season. Now, if the Democrats can salvage their ticket, it seems like it's too late. This might be able to be avoided. But if the powers that be feel Trump is going to get into office, well, it's going to be a bumpy road between now and November, without a doubt. So going into, let's look at a headline from Politico, which is a intelligence agency mouthpiece, or the intelligence agencies are really, the intelligence really are, what they are is they're the main force controlled by the oligarchy or the elite or the evil cabal, whatever you want to tell them, the deep state. The deep state is controlled by the corporate or elite political class. So, but their main arm of control, not just nationally, but internationally, is the intelligence agency. So the FBI, the NSA, the CIA. So, and then the CIA goes around and using Operation Mockingbird takes over mouthpieces like Politico. So let's go to this Politico article. Trump gives longest televised acceptance speech ever, the 3 longest presidential nomination acceptance speeches in history: Trump 2016, Trump 2020, and Trump 2024. So the guy is verbose. Who cares? But again, the Politico is using this opportunity to slander or to otherwise undermine any authority Trump would have. Now, I read through the article. I'm not going to bore you with it here. They pick apart basically Trump's populist speech. He went over, the most important thing is he went over, and I'm going to get to a very important piece he disclosed. He went over in detail what he was thinking during the assassination attempt. And there was actually a funny part when he put up the chart for the illegal immigration. He goes, "This is a beautiful chart." And it is going to be a chart that goes out in history. And that was a funny moment. But let's go back to the news. New York Post is reporting Trump holds comfortable lead over Biden nationally after assassination attempt. Says a new poll. Now, originally they were saying that he got no bump from the assassination attempt, but that's not true. There was sort of like a pause. Biden's polling numbers continued to slide. So people said, well, I'm not voting for Biden because maybe it was responsible. Who knows what was going on there. But we didn't see a gain by Trump, and now we see it. And I think we're going to see it even more for people that tuned in to Trump's speech. Now, even MSNBC, who wasn't at the event, by the way, and I'm going to get into that in just a second, even MSNBC actually carried the whole speech, which was remarkable. So it was a long speech, longer than I would have liked, but that goes without saying. I mean, that's Trump. He's verbose. He likes to talk. People usually like to listen to him. But then he went over a lot of the regular rally things about immigration. And although he did mention Biden, but only once, and then he just referred to the administration, the present administration. So this is what I wanted to get into from the New York Times. Is Maddow in Milwaukee? No, that's an LED screen on MSNBC. A production technique gave the impression that Rachel Maddow and other star anchors were reporting in Milwaukee, not from 30 Rockefeller Plaza. The fact is that I noticed that right away, because if they were in Milwaukee, they would get a convention noise. As you saw with Fox, if you tuned into Fox, you could hear sometimes the bands were way loud. And if they were reporting from the skybox at the time, you know, the skybox is open. And so they would hear a lot of that sound. But you didn't hear that from MSNBC. Most of the coverage by MSNBC was they didn't even tune into any of the speeches. They just referred to who was speaking, and then they went on to destroy them and smear those people. Oh, even the most leftist of the speakers, which was the Teamster head, who gave a very left-wing speech in terms of labor, they didn't even address anything that he said. They just went off as like, oh, he's a turncoat. You know, he's anybody who shows support for Trump is some sort of loser. And they go on with this trite narrative that's really not working now. And I'm going to go into why that is. So sticking with NBC for now, the Daily Mail is reporting that MSNBC star Joy Reid pumps more conspiracy theories about Trump assassination attempt. That seems really unusual. It's weird. And if you haven't heard Joy Reid lately, she's first of all, she's responsible for the assassination attempt. If the actual establishment narrative is exactly what it is, which is this crazy lone kid was goaded into doing this by people online, because as I mentioned yesterday, he was using encrypted communications on his phone during the assassination. So if he was a loner, why would you have your phone out using encrypted communication? And he was apparently also posting things encrypted. So there was a lot going on there. That makes it a conspiracy. But if it is, as the narrative says, is that he acted relatively alone, which I don't think that's the case, it is what it is. And Joy Reid is responsible, because if you're calling Trump Hitler and a danger to democracy, and people are watching this or listening to this over and over again, that's what they were hoping for. They were hoping, with all their diatribes smearing Trump and demonizing Trump, they were hoping some nutbag would take things into their own hands and try to hurt Trump. And we've seen this time and time again. There have been threats, and even in 2016 already, there was a guy with a gun in the crowd that tried to shoot Trump. Most people don't remember that, because it was before he was president. It was early in his campaign. I actually think it was 2015, but moving on to Mediaite, MSNBC's coverage of Republican politics is starting to feature QAnon-style conspiracies. Now, so this is what they're saying is Trump organized his own assassination attempt. Now, I just want to say here that that's not beyond the pale, okay? It isn't. Anything is possible. Like, I was very skeptical when Trump was running for president and he was railing against immigration. And then, like, the very day he started railing against illegal immigration, and there is a difference between immigration and illegal immigration, but that young woman was shot in broad daylight on the San Francisco pier by an illegal immigrant who had been deported like 5 times. I found that a strange coincidence. And so I am not one-sided in my conspiracy theories. However, my conspiracy theory is not about Trump faked this, because I even thought about it. It did cross my mind that maybe he had an explosive on his ear that blew off the top of his ear. It seems like a long way to go to get sympathy for a campaign that's already winning. You know what I mean? So it seems more likely that the people that are the most desperate will take the most extreme action, and that's the Democrats or the establishment, however you want to voice it. They can't, you know, they didn't want a first term of Trump. They tried to cheat him out with padding the vote, but he won overwhelmingly. He has so much support within the electorate, and it's even growing, that padding didn't work. So that's why they had to have the pandemic. Then they had to actually ship in ballots during the vote counting, because Trump was so far ahead that they needed tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of extra ballots, which they were ready for, by the way. And the only way this would have ever been possible is to allow mail-in balloting. So now it seems that even with their mail-in balloting, they won't be able to cheat, so they're going to extremer measures. But still, MSNBC is turning the whole conspiracy on its head and saying, no, it's Trump who's the conspiracist, not them. Not like MSNBC doesn't get their marching orders to go smear Trump. I mean, obviously, they hire people that are anti-Trump, Joy Reid, or so far left-wing that automatically anybody who's on the right, you know, whether it would be John McCain or Mitt Romney or whoever, you know, would be smeared. But they have a particular hatred for a populist conservative, because God forbid we stop spending money like drunken sailors. And don't forget, I just wanted to take this time to remind you that our debt service is the biggest U.S. expenditure. It's bigger than entitlements. It's bigger than defense spending. It's close to $1 trillion for debt service alone, and that's every year. So $1 trillion could buy a lot of things. And I also take this opportunity to remind you to engage the channel, leave a comment, give me a thumbs up, share the podcast, most particularly. So let's get back to the headlines here from the Wall Street Journal. Top Democrats prepare for a campaign without Biden. Some said it's a matter of when, not if, the president bows out of the 2024 race, as new data showed him losing in a landslide. Well, there was a Wall Street Journal earlier, and now it's the Wall Street Journal again, saying he would lose in a landslide, and that's why the Democrats have all their panties in a bunch, because that's indeed the case. So I don't believe Joe Biden has COVID. I think they're trying to figure out a way for him to exit. Now, what the rules state is that the money can shift if the candidate has to leave for physical or medical reasons. So this would buy right into the fact where they could move the money either to Kamala Harris or to a Kamala Harris ticket. I still think the Democrats and the establishment have some negative things planned, definitely some more crises, so everybody's heads will be spinning and they won't be able to think straight in terms of selecting a political candidate. So just getting back to the RNC here, Tucker Carlson hails Trump as bravest man in RNC speech after telling staffer, "I hate him passionately." Now, Tucker's speech was great. It was normal Tucker. And the fact that Mediaite says this, and we're going to get into something else regarding that, they also said it about J.D. Vance. The thing is with Tucker Carlson and anybody else, that if they buy into what the establishment narrative is about somebody, they're going to have problems accepting that person for what they really are. And we heard this throughout the speeches at the RNC by a lot of leftists too, who said, I hated Trump. And then I got to know the man and I like him and I find him sincere and empathetic, which is exactly the opposite of what the mainstream media will tell you. So moving on to another article by Mediaite, Elon Musk calls Trump a stone-cold loser, according to the New York Times report on billionaire's rocky relationship with ex-president. Now, they had the same thing with J.D. Vance. They said J.D. Vance, before he knew Trump, and he went to Yale, so he had that mindset, and he was thinking, he believed the establishment narrative about Trump, that Trump is somehow, and I never liked Trump. Everybody liked Trump when he was on The Apprentice, and before The Apprentice, he was this big developer, and that's all great. I never liked Trump. I was never a Trump fan. But when he started talking about political policy, it intrigued me because I was a one-issue guy back in 2015. I didn't like the TPP, and anybody who was for the TPP was against America because I was part of labor then, and and the funny thing was, the union I was in was for Hillary Clinton. I'm like, but wait, Hillary Clinton is for TPP, and that's going to suck out jobs. I don't understand. And they couldn't articulate that. And so I was like, then I became sort of anti-union because I realized that they were kind of hand in glove with the corporations to some extent. And then I started looking at Trump, and Trump said TPP is awful trade agreement. And then he started railing against NAFTA, and I knew all about NAFTA, and Ross Perot, the giant sucking sound, and Bill Clinton put it in and exactly hollowed out manufacturing in the United States. So we know that. So everybody at first looked at Trump and was like, and they believe what, never believe what you're told. Figure it out on your own. So going back to this article, the left-leaning cable news network had struggled to cover the current news cycle for the audience eager to hear only good news about President Joe Biden or dire warnings about former President Donald Trump. The formula has led to relatively strong ratings over the past few years. Oh, this is actually, I'm sorry, this is the page from the MSNBC article. So I'll just briefly go into that. The lurid spectacle echoed a phenomenon. This week, they said MSNBC struggled to cover it all. Many smart and typical reliable voices on the network leaned into conspiracy theories, the lurid spectacle about the phenomenon, following the rise of the QAnon, which holds, among others, deranged ideas that the Democratic is a cabal of cannibal pedophiles, that JFK Jr. is still alive, and that Trump is currently president. I'm sorry about that. I had things mixed up there. But altogether, the left narrative isn't based in truth and reality. Truth and reality is based on finding objective facts. The best way to put it is there's a grand truth. There's a greater truth, and then there's smaller truths that have to reconcile like puzzle pieces. So you take every piece of information and you dissect it and you give it the stress test. You see if it has reputable, it's sourced reputably to a reliable source, someone you could believe, and then that source is corroborated by a different source. And then you could sort of assume that that might be a fact. But then that fact has to reconcile with other truths that you know. Otherwise, you're going to fall into cognitive dissonance. So this all kind of fits together with the fact is that the left doesn't know what to do now. So they're making up their own conspiracy theories. And because they think people will believe them because they believe the conspiracy theories on the right. So let's go into more conspiracy theories on the right that really aren't conspiracy theories as conspiracy truths. As I just mentioned, that the shooter, the attempted assassin, supposedly, of President Trump, was in communication on his cell phone with other people during the assassination attempt, encrypted, using encryption. That makes it a conspiracy. If he's talking to somebody, or somebody is talking to him, more likely, that makes it a conspiracy. That's not, you don't have to go QAnon crazy for that to be a conspiracy. Now, what the conspiracy theory entails, we don't know. So moving back to some headlines here from Fox News, Democrats call Biden to step aside as nominee after debate disaster COVID diagnosis. President Biden has so far rejected calls for him to step aside and select a different nominee ahead of the national convention in Chicago next month. But here's where conspiracy, now you don't hear Joy Reid and Rachel Maddow talking about whether or not the White House is lying about Joe Biden's COVID status. That's a conspiracy theory that could very well be based on fact. We don't know, but I don't take liars at their word. So I believe this is the beginning of the end for Joe Biden. So while he's sequestered with COVID, he's talking with Hunter and Jill, trying to figure out a way to sidestep the party, which is impossible, especially if you're not Trump. Trump was able to do it, but no way Joe Biden is going to get elected without the Democratic Party, and he wouldn't be allowed to run. So along these lines from the Washington Post, on the edge of despair with GOP convention's last never Trumpers. And then they talk about these people who didn't want Trump and they're at the convention. The reaction seemed worrisome for a gathering of never Trumpers who are typically glad to find a place, any place, where they can both be openly conservative and openly disdainful of the man being nominated just a few blocks down the street. But some of them aren't sold on the Democratic nominee, so a diagnosis was in order. This one of the never Trumpers seemed disheartened that his fellow travelers weren't exactly fired up to beat the man atop the GOP ticket. Because you can't. The MAGA movement is a phenomenon, a political movement that's never been seen in history, particularly never in American history, for sure. Why they're never Trumpers, I don't know. Like I said, I've kind of grown to kind of like Trump. I've never really liked him, but it doesn't matter. Politics are about policy, not personality. Although a lot of people look at politics exactly the opposite. It's like choosing your favorite football team because you like the colors. It doesn't matter. So Trump has a personality. It's kind of grown on me over the years. And the fact is that he's so resilient and so defiant against the onslaught for the establishment has made me admire the man. But it's particularly the policies. I've always been somewhat of an isolationist and very protective of the rights and liberties that the Constitution of the United States provide. All right, enough about me. This wasn't reported. This was from earlier in the week. I didn't get to that because I kept sending myself this article and it would never show up. So I don't know why someone would try to hide this article from me reporting on it. But I've been trying to cover it since Monday and it just slipped through the cracks. A ski mask wearing man with a concealed AK-47 pistol. It's not a pistol. Oh my God. Arrested Monday near Republican National Convention, authorities say. A man arrested in Milwaukee wearing a ski mask and carrying a concealed weapon without a permit in the vicinity of a Pfizery Forum, the site of the Republican National Convention, was also carrying a backpack containing rifle ammunition, a mask from the movie screen, and 2 cans of spray paint, among other items. So they don't say who this guy was. Of course not. And maybe that's why they wouldn't let me cover it. So who is it? Leftist? Anarchist? Iranian? Assassin? I mean, obviously you would have to shoot yourself in to the RNC and you wouldn't get very far, especially with the increased security. However, most of these people that are found, first of all, AK-47, let's talk about firearms for a second. AK-47 is, if you take off the stock or it has a folding stock, it's considered a machine pistol or a semi-automatic pistol. Same thing in Connecticut. That's how they get around the assault rifle legislation is because they just put a pistol brace on, and so technically it's a pistol, it's not an assault rifle, so that's how they get around it. But all automatic or semi-automatic rifles, if you take the stock off, is considered a pistol, because what makes a rifle is the stock. So going back into this article here, the fact is that many people are apprehended with weaponry and ammo ready to go. So with masks and stuff, and so we don't know who this guy is. Looked into the article. They talked about special agents, Homeland Security, investigators. They don't say anything. Was this guy not a patsy, but an agent or an asset they were going to let loose? And that maybe they were, because apparently they were arrested by municipal police, because it says law enforcement officers. It doesn't say, and then it says they were brought into custody through the Milwaukee County District Attorney. So it sounds like they were arrested by either state police or, more than likely, municipal cops. But then you don't hear peep. They're looking into it, Homeland Security, they're looking into it, but you didn't hear anything else from that. Very strange. Other news here from Bloomberg: U.S. prepares jamming devices targeting Russia-China satellites. The U.S. is about to deploy new ground-based jammer designed to blunt Chinese or Russian satellites for transmitting information about U.S. forces during a conflict, Space Force disclosed. Okay, good. Why are they announcing it today? Hard to say. I recently watched Leave the World Behind again. That was Obama's dystopian flick. And you got to watch out for that, because this is exactly the way things are going to transpire. You're going to have a major cyber attack. Everybody's going to be in the dark because we're so used to the technology and everything is hooked up to the internet now. So we're going to be put in the dark, and then we're going to be isolated and then assaulted. We don't know what exactly would transpire, but the cyber attack will always come first. So whether it's done with satellites or what have you, it would come before any sort of actual attack. So just be prepared that if you're in the dark, anything could happen. You could be hit with a biological weapon. You could be hit with a dirty bomb or actual nuclear weapons. Nobody knows. And you won't have any information because all the information comes over the internet. Moving on with news here from the Wall Street Journal. Greatest bubble nearing its peak, says Black Swan manager. Universa's Mark Spitznagel, who has made billions from past crashes, says last hurrah for stocks before severe reckoning. I don't doubt this for a minute. I've been talking to my brother, and he always talks to me about firearms. You know, why do you need all those firearms? Is it for the Civil War? I just say, dude, everything is precariously perched. The economy is a house of cards. The fact our reliance on the internet and electricity, if it goes out, within 2 weeks, people are going to be roaming the streets looking for food and water. So any problem, either caused by a nuclear strike, any sort of cyber attack, a financial collapse, anything could put us, really, civilization or society in severe jeopardy in a couple of weeks. And in the state I live in, it takes, if you want to get a firearm, it takes you almost a year. So there's no chance of, lest you go to a firearm store and break in or try to steal the firearms. So, hard to say. Moving on to other headlines here. Trump shooter Thomas Crooks might have been battling undiagnosed mental illness. And I'm not delving into these stories because I have a lot to say about the headline alone, and you probably would like a little more detailed information, but What I'm saying about this headline here is the fact is he did have mental illness. If you're antisocial, or especially by 20 years old, it's different if you're 8 years old or 10 and you're bashful and or shy or whatever. That's understandable. But if it's allowed to manifest into adulthood, if you don't realize why people are teasing you or not friendly with you or not communicating with you or not social with you, you need to break through that. And I know people are introverted and stuff like that, but you need, by the time you're an adult, to develop some sort of social skill. Even if you don't want to. You know what I mean? It's like I don't necessarily like to be around people a lot of the time or crowds of people. I like to be out in nature a lot of times by myself. It's all good. But when you live in a civilization, you live in society. You want to move out to the woods somewhere, great. But you live in society, so you have to know how to communicate with people. So one of the reasons I'm doing this is I grew up as a shy kid, so I'm trying to try to develop my better public speaking ability. In any case, people should know about this. So my point about this story here is the fact that this guy fit the profile of somebody who might blow or crack. So what we have to understand about this is that's who develops the profiles on people. Who has the ability to develop profiles on basically everybody in the country? Well, the FBI does. So they know by people's internet use, and that's how they really judge you, because they vacuum up all that information. Now they have AI to go through it all. They find targets. And the way the system was developed to find targets of people to watch because they might be crazy and do something. But these same warnings give them the opportunity to go, oh, that's a target that we might be able to influence into doing something crazy that might benefit our agenda overall. So instead of getting the warning signs to stop people like school shooters and this guy from doing stuff, what they do is they actually develop them and they nurture them and goad them into doing something. And they've developed over the years a very specific way of nudging people. And I would advise you to go read the book by Cass Sunstein, Nudge, and it puts it in plain English what they're able to do. Sometimes subconsciously, like when Biden says we have to put a bullseye on Trump, that's a subconscious inference. And so if you're suggestible, you could do that. So, but the FBI knows this, and so they communicate with you online because you're online all the time because you're a lonely loser, and they say, hey, man, I want to be your friend. You know what we need to do? We need to get Trump, or we need to shoot up a school or whatever. Meet me there. Okay, this is what you do, and they have a whole plan and everything, except if you've ever seen, what the hell was the name of that movie? Something Road. I always forget it. I think it was Beau Bridges. Whatever. In any case, you show up and nobody else is there. So you're the only one there, and then you're there with your rifle, and then, the crooks is texting, where are you guys? We're here. Go through with the plan. Go through with your end of the plan. We're here, whatever. And so he goes and does it. At least that's my theory. And I like to admit, or I also like to acknowledge that Luke Rudkowski also today happened to mention that same theory, that we're all kind of linked into that fact, is that even since Columbine, people that are online and are social outcasts are very suggestible. And like I said, they profile people with borderline mental illness that are very suggestible. And then they can go through with this. So they're targeted into doing something like this. I also, as a parting note here, want to give Props to Lou Dobbs, conservative cable news anchor, dies at 78. He hosted one of Fox Business's highest rated shows before it was canceled in 2021. Why was it canceled? You know why it was canceled. Because Lou Dobbs was a truth teller. A lot like Maria Bartiromo. She was, Lou Dobbs was her mentor. And so she picked up a lot of the truth telling that Lou Dobbs was engaged in. And I couldn't believe it because he was a pretty straight-laced guy. And he came out, his show was canceled because he didn't believe the election in 2020. All right, that's it for me today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about the podcast. Give me a thumbs up. Share the podcast most of all. Thanks for joining me today. Have a great weekend. I doubt, barring some unforeseen circumstance, I doubt there's going to be a special report this weekend, but sometimes I try to do that on Saturday. Live every day, Monday through Friday on Rumble at 10 a.m. So join me live. Remember, you're under attack psychologically, biologically, and if you're alone in your mother's basement on the computer all the time, you are under attack psychologically. And if you're eating junk food and crap that's prepackaged with preservatives, you're under attack biologically. Also, don't take pharmaceuticals. So stay hip to the trick, and I will see you Monday. Respect.
You can't handle the truth.
Google me, bitch!